You are listening to the Kinetic Man Podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm David, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living a life defined by uncommon action that is full of purpose, adventure, and meaningful relationships. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours, and together achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to leave the potential life behind and become kinetic men.
Men, we have a big announcement at the end of this podcast episode, so make sure you listen all the way to the end. We're starting up a new program in March called TKM Reflections, and we're going to be guiding men to take uncommon action. If you don't want to wait till the end, you can go to thekineticman.com/sign-up, thekineticman.com/sign-up, and go fight on your own right now. Take uncommon action. Enjoy the show. All right, I'm going to start off this podcast with a dad joke. My son has been telling dad jokes to his teachers every single day, so that's kind of now a thing. So I'm like having to search and find jokes every day. So here it is. Tell me if you've heard this. What do you call a rude cow? No? Beef jerky.
That's great.
Oh,
That's
man.
Great.
Love it. Love it.
You like that? You got one? You got one better, Goody?
No, I actually have a question. I have a question for Tyler, and I'm curious on his expertise on this. So, Tyler, you have 6 kids, right? 6 kiddos.
Yep.
I'm curious at how seriously, and maybe we'll get into this conversation on, being a good dad and maybe feeling empathy and compassion. But how seriously, particularly with the boys, I found my boys are extremely whiny and very intolerant of pain.
Yes.
And so we were in church. My kid, I literally thought his appendix burst. One of my oldest boy. We're in the bathroom. Like he's literally like, I took him out of church because he's like making all this. He's like, I got cramps, my stomach. It hurts so bad. He's like laying in the bathroom. We found a bathroom. Luckily, it's just, that we could close the door, and like just crying. And I'm Googling like, what is appendicitis? Blah, blah, right. Get in the car. He's miserable all the way home. I missed the whole sermon. We get home and like, dude is like, probably like 30 minutes later, he's like, oh man, whew. Like you didn't poo, nothing, right? Like none of the normal, like whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm about to take you to the hospital. Like, how serious is this? But what I have found is my boys typically like this is a thing. Like they don't do it a lot, and they're not like, but whenever they're in pain or whenever they're hurt, it's like next level to the point where it's always the boy who cried wolf. So I'm just curious, for someone with 6 kids, how do you maintain empathy and not like, I get so frustrated with my kids when they're hurt because I'm like, you're not hurt.
Yeah. Yep. Man, I feel you. So I've got 3 boys, 3 girls, and one of my sons in particular, I'll protect his identity and not say which one he is, but he is like, biggest case of man flu whenever he gets sick. My wife and I joke often, like we just pray regularly for his future wife and all that she will be navigating whenever he gets sick as a grown adult. But yeah, it's one of those things that I have to catch myself, because especially with my boys, when they are playing up these illnesses or these wounds or whatever, I can realize how it causes me to be less empathetic with my daughters at times. And so it's like they use all of it up. Especially, we're just coming off a month of sickness. And so my like empathy tank was low by the end. And I have to catch myself and realize like, okay, my daughter's actually sick. She needs me to be attentive. She needs me to be compassionate. She needs me to be slow and present with her. I owe that to her, even though my son, I think, played it up a little bit. So it's one of those things of having to remind myself often to take each kid individually, even when they are collectively using up a lot of the empathy tank when they're sick, for sure.
That's good, man. That's good. Hey, before we get into like this is going to be basically just a straight up mentoring session for both of us as failing dads. So before we get into that, let's get a little backstory about who you are and what you do, Tyler, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name's Tyler Graham. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and as I mentioned, I've got 6 kids. So I've got my oldest is a girl; she'll be 10 in March. Then I've got 3 boys in a row. They're 8, 7, and 5, and then we capped it off with 2 girls at the end. So they are 4 and 2. I work in healthcare technology consulting is kind of my day-to-day job, and on the side have been working on something called Burn Untamed, which right now is primarily just producing almost daily content on LinkedIn targeted towards envisioning, equipping, and encouraging dads to be wholehearted in their fatherhood, to show up on a day-to-day basis. As you just kind of alluded to, like fatherhood is no joke. It's so hard, and I think there's just kind of this perpetual feeling amongst dads that they just never feel like they're living up to like the standard, right? And so my goal is to help dads see like the small incremental ways that they can make changes on a day-to-day basis, taking advantage of kind of the mundane moments of fatherhood, to show up, to be present, to be intentional, to be consistent with their kids, and really to create the legacy, like the intentional legacy that they want to leave with their kids, and not let it happen by accident.
Man, that's so good, and that's so needed right now. I agree
Yeah.
100%. I'm curious, where did this purpose, this mission come from? Is there a backstory to that? Is there did you have a dad growing up?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you have an intentional present father in your
Yeah.
life?
Yeah. So I did, thankfully. It's a major blessing. I'm increasingly convinced that the presence of a father in a child's life is one of the greatest like advantages they can have in life. And so I'm grateful to say that I did. I'm still very close with my dad. He lives about 10 minutes down the road, him and my mom. And so it's, I grew up with dad in the home, working very diligently to take care of and provide for our family. And it was really probably about 2 years ago or so, I started getting active on LinkedIn, and was really with the two goals of improving my communication skills as a professional goal for my job, and two, to overcome some insecurity that I was feeling like I wanted to get kind of my voice out there more publicly, and just kind of overcome some doubts and fears that I had about my own capabilities that I'd battled for a while. And over the course of probably 6 or 7 months, was posting primarily about leadership. And I noticed after that time that anytime I would post kind of a one-off thing about fatherhood or about my kids or about what I was navigating at home, that it just generated a lot more engagement. It seemed like it was something that people were really wanting more of. They were wanting to hear more stories. They were wanting to talk more and engage more on this topic of fatherhood, and realize that while I think there's so many incredible dads out there producing so many amazing things, that there's just not enough still. Like there can't be enough conversation around what it means to be a good dad. And so it kind of started by accident, to be honest. And it was one of those things I just kind of prayed through at that time. This was probably August of 2022. And it's one of those things where, being a dad of 6 kids, working a full-time job, it's not like there's a whole lot of free time in my days. And so just kind of prayerfully ask the Lord, like, is this something you want me to pursue? Because I'll do it if you want me to, and if not, like I'll lay this thing down. I'm gonna give up the LinkedIn thing. I feel like I accomplished what I originally came to accomplish, and I feel like you just said, yeah, go for it. Like, and I've continued to offer it up over the past 18 months or so, and the answer that I feel like I continue to get is to keep investing in dads. And so I still don't know fully what that's going to look like over the course of the next, 6 months, year, 5 years. I hope it continues to grow. I think it will. But I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I love that, dude. There's so many elements there that, one, just the idea, especially from a faith perspective, to give it to God and be like, hey, is this what you want me to do? And I think too many of us are crippled by, I hear the prayer all the time, hey, Lord, make your will clear to me. Like that's not a realistic prayer. I don't think. I,
Hmm.
I don't think, you're like, I'm gonna sit here in prayer, and I'm just going to sit here until you make your will clear.
Hmm.
And then once you do, I'm going to take action. I love the fact
Hmm.
that you did it and you're pursuing it. And in the midst of that, you're prayerfully considering and asking for guidance. And I think in the motion, in the activity, in the action, that's where God shows up, and that's where
Yeah.
he, we can hear him, we can see him, we can bless others. And so I love that you highlight that, uh, because I think a lot of people are hesitant to make their voice and share their story particularly a God-given voice and a God-given
Yeah.
story. And so really just thank you for blessing us with that and the encouragement. And I'm just curious, in light of that, is the coaching, because if folks go to Burn Untamed, they can find all your stuff there, but there's also coaching that you offer.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, is the vision that the coaching is kind of the thing that you want to do full time, and you want to just pour into ads, or what's the vision for that long term?
Yeah, so the vision certainly is to continue to grow it and being able to work with dads both directly and some one-on-one coaching. I've done some group coaching cohorts as well, all the way to producing kind of freestanding content. Writing a book or two is certainly on the list of things that I aspire to do. I really just want to see it continue to grow in a way that's going to make the content more widely accessible to dads. Right now, I'm focused primarily on dads with young kids just because that's the stage of life that I'm in. That's what I know. New dads that are becoming dads for the first time. I'll be entering those preteen years soon, and so hopefully the content will grow as my as I fail at that and learn some hard fought lessons that I can share to hopefully help other dads avoid it. But yeah, I mean the dream is that it could continue to grow to be something that I could do on a full time basis. To be able to include my kids in it, to be like a very family centric thing. Include my wife to grow it to be, burn untamed families, have that aspect of it too. I've had several dads ask if there's something similar for moms. And so the dream is there. It's just a matter of how do we make time for it, on top of, like I said, caring for our kids. My wife homeschools our kids full time, so finding the margin to make it happen.
It's tough for sure, man. With six kiddos, I only have two, and I feel, sometimes that, like you said, I fail daily.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And I love that though. I love that you have the mindset of that, because I mean, we're not perfect. We're not perfect
absolutely.
fathers, and we do fail often, but just the idea of taking that failure and becoming better for it.
Hmm.
And I'm curious, your website, and I know this about you from our own conversations and what you post on LinkedIn. Your content is fantastic, but
Thank you.
you say that we have to be intentional fathers by doing less, and it's very countercultural to society right now. Like,
Yeah.
most of society is do more, right?
Hmm.
Hustle, grind,
Yeah.
work harder, create more time, like all these things. And
Hmm.
I know you're a fan of John Mark Comer
Oh
and
yeah.
the ruthless elimination of hurry, and I am too, man. It was game changer for me.
Yeah.
So explain to us how you become an intentional father by doing less.
Yeah, so good. I mean, this we could sit on this question for the rest of our time together and unpack it because I think it's so powerful. And you're right. I'll just put in a plug for Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. If you've not read it, I'm a self-admitted John Mark Comer fanboy. But that book absolutely
Same.
changed my life. I'm reading his newest book now. And yeah, we read that. So really at the beginning of 2022, not knowing what was about to hit us that year, I really felt going into that year that the Lord was inviting me to slow down as I was sitting with him, kind of processing. I always kind of seek him on a word or a phrase for the year, and slow down kind of continued to be this phrase that came to mind. And so I had a friend recommend that book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and read it, and just radically changed the way that I viewed our life. My wife and I were both in leadership positions in our church. I was stepping into an elder role. She was on staff as an operational leader, making a lot of things happen. We were leading a house church. I was a manager in my job at work, and we were responsible for just a lot of things and a lot of people. And as we read this book, and as the Lord continued to kind of reveal what it meant for us to slow down, we realized like we were just going so hard in so many aspects of our life, and our kids were kind of getting the leftovers, right? Like they were the ones where we were rushing through bedtime because we had people coming over for dinner that we needed to take care of or invest in, or our weekends were spent just feeling exhausted. Like we'd go really hard. Our kind of rhythm was we'd go really, really hard for like 6, 7 weeks, and then we just crash. We'd cancel all of our plans for a week, and then like reboot and just do it all again. And we realized like this is not sustainable for us. Like this is not going to get us where we want to go. This isn't going to result in us being the type of family that we want to be. And so then COVID hit, and it was kind of a forced slowdown in so many ways as it was, I think, for a lot of people. And we just really tried to use that time to craft new rhythms for our family that would allow us to slow down, to remove things that weren't important, or to remove things I won't even say that weren't important, because I think you have to say no to important things to say yes to the right things. And so it was this constant evaluation throughout that year of 2020 of what do we need to say yes to and what do we need to lay down and say no to. And that kind of culminated in this what we call the note card exercise. Heard it from a guy named Jefferson Bethke, who's wrote a book very similar around the same time as John Mark Comer, and you essentially write out all of your commitments, everything, all your responsibilities, anything that requires regular time from you on note cards, and lay them out on your coffee table or kitchen table. And then just over the course of an hour or two, just prayerfully consider what is the Lord asking you to pick back up and to keep going, and what is He asking you to lay down and leave on the table. And because I think it's really easy to let a one-time yes become kind of a permanent yes and never actually go back to say, is this something I should still be doing? Should I still be saying yes to this? And so that at that time, my wife quit her job at the church. I ended up stepping down from my elder role shortly after that. We stepped out of leadership in the house church that we were in. We shifted some things in our family, introduced a 24-hour Sabbath that we do on a weekly basis, and it was really just kind of a revolutionary time for our family to really say we need to cut out things in order to invest heavily within the four walls of our house for a season of our life.
Dude, I love that. Just a random follow on to that one. How often
Yeah.
do you reassess? Do you like regular reassess or do the card, the card exercise? How often do you do that?
Yeah. So the full-blown card exercise we typically do kind of towards the end of every year. But I do think we try to be intentional about doing quarterly assessments of our rhythm. So whether that's on a date night, whether that's we take some time on a weekend, really just trying to evaluate at least on a quarterly basis what's working well, what's not, what do we need to say yes to, what do we need to start saying no to, because especially when you got young kids, like life changes really fast. The demands of your
Mm.
kids change very fast. I think it's just something that requires us in this season of life, which we're going to be in the season for a while with 6 kids, to assess often, more than I originally would have thought we needed to.
No, I love that, man. Yeah, and just yeah, I wanted to get practical because I think,
Yeah,
I was assuming that it was not a one-time thing, and then you figured it out,
yeah,
right?
for
This is
sure,
an
for
iterative
sure.
process that is continuous and something that can easily be done very frequently to also just really refine that, right? To get focused on what it is you
100%.
desire. So I love that.
Mhm.
Hey, so what do you say to people who ask, what qualifies you to be a coach of other dads, right? And,
Yeah.
and the reason I ask the question is one, because I'm sure you have an amazing answer, but two, I think so many people, especially in coaching and masterminds and doing specific, like anybody who wants to take on a guide role
Hmm.
to help others, I think there's a hesitancy. There's oftentimes we question ourselves, we lack confidence, we have imposter syndrome, all these stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to help us get past that, right? To help those that have a story to tell, that have a voice, that have a desire to help others to get out of their own way and start doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most helpful like pieces of advice that I got in this area is to think about yourself from 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago, and if you could go back and tell that person something, if you could give that person advice, what would you share? And I think that for the first several years of my fatherhood, I did fatherhood very poorly. And there's a lot that I would go back and tell Tyler from 5 years ago about the way that he was showing up for his kids. And I realized when I was seeing the advice essentially was saying, if you've got like important things to tell yourself from however long ago, like that there's other people that need to hear that as well. And so to go back to, your comment earlier, Stu, I am by no means a perfect dad. I don't have it all figured out. I'm having to apologize to my kids very often, more often than I'd like to admit, for the ways that I'm screwing up, or speaking too harshly, or being impatient, or not following through on things that I tell them I'm going to do. I mean, it's daily that I'm having to go to my kids and tell them that, I messed up. And that's probably going to be the case forever, right? Like I'm a broken man, and I'm hoping that I'm being refined along the way. Fatherhood certainly refines you in ways that I think very little else can. But there's just a lot of lessons I've learned in that process of messing up, apologizing, learning to do it better, and then kind of the additional piece to that would again be kind of what Stu was just asking about, was this idea of doing less. I think so much of the content that I see specifically geared towards men can often have like this flavor of, you know, picking yourself up by your bootstraps, or like doing more, like conquering all these things, do more cold plunges, you need to be working out this many times a week. And I think those things are good. I'm not at all saying that they're bad. But for me personally, like those types of things don't resonate with me as a man. Like I'm not the kind of guy that gets like charged up by that kind of thing. I'm more the dad that's like, I feel like I'm drowning in responsibility, and you telling me to wake up at 4 a.m. to do a cold plunge and go lift weights for an hour and a half. I'm like, that's just not going to happen. Um, so I think this being able to add what I think can be a complimentary message of, hey, like you can slow down, you can actually do less, to be more intentional with your kids. Like you can not have to plan out these crazy things to show up and be present for your kids. You can actually just cut out stuff that doesn't serve your family's vision, allow you to be more present in the mundane moments, the family dinners, the breakfast around the table with the kids, the cleaning up after dinner time. Those types of moments can be unbelievably powerful in connecting with your kids, but we miss them so often when we become overburdened by things that aren't important or aren't serving our family's vision and values. So I think that message is one that I think is a bit unique. It's not one I've seen a lot of other people share, and so that was one of the big reasons I wanted to kind of get my voice out there.
Yeah, dude, I think it is unique, and it's why I love, reading, looking at your posts. I mean, typically, you have a post of, again, something very mundane. Like, I mean, today I think you had a picture of your boy like standing on the table,
Yeah.
right? And like,
Yep.
but like, and that happens all the time in my
Yep.
family, right? They're gonna
Yep.
climb on things, stand on things, jump off of things. And but you equate it to something really important and powerful, and your messaging is great. I'm curious, have you seen an impact to your kids
Mm.
by just this intentionality of slowing down and be more present? Because you said early on, you made a lot of mistakes, and just sounds like just recently, 2022, you kind of
Mhm.
made this decision to really slow down, be more intentional. How has that changed your kids, in the way that you see?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually one I was just thinking about this morning. So on Tuesdays, that's why it's strangely quiet in my house right now. So hopefully there's not a whole lot of background noise. Otherwise, we'd probably get some visitors. So my wife started a homeschool co-op, and her and all the kids go there on Tuesdays. And it's one of those things, because we homeschool, and we do try to be pretty slow paced, unhurried in what we do. Getting everybody out the door by 8:15 on Tuesday mornings can be a bit hectic, because it's just not normal for us. And it's one of those things that I've learned, especially about my oldest daughter. She is probably the most unhurried person I have ever met in my life. She doesn't do anything fast. If you try to hurry her, it goes south very quick. And so it's like this reminder to me when I'm trying to get her ready to get dressed, eat breakfast. She's got pet bunnies outside that she's got to go take care of before they leave for school. And so I'm trying to help her set out the next hour of time, to say, hey, here's the things you got to do. Let's make sure you're budgeting your time correctly to get it all done. And it's I use that as the example, but it's that kind of culture that I think has been created and embodied in our family now. It's one of our 10 family pillars is 3 mile an hour family, which first heard referenced in the John Mark Comer book, where he talks about moving at 3 miles an hour, which is, the average pace of somebody walking. And that's really what we want our family to be about. We want our family to be unhurried. We don't want to be constantly moving to the next thing, thinking about what's coming up next, missing these present moments because we're trying to get to something else. And so I've seen that with our kids where like they refuse to be hurried and they are going to be present where they are. I see that in the way that they want to, my son's my 8-year-old, his constant request is, hey, do we have time to play a quick game? Like that's just what he wants to do. Like that's his thing. He just wants to sit down, be together, present over a game, whether board game, card game, whatever, or read a book together. Like those are the things that I see my kids longing to do together now. It's things that really facilitate and bring connection with one another and with me and my wife especially. So I see how the kids have really embodied that and really want to live slowly. They feel it. If our calendar gets over scheduled, they'll ask, "Hey, can we please stay at home today? Can we have like a slow day at home?" So they're helping us to live that out too when we miss the mark and try to go too fast.
Dude, I love that. And there's the idea that the way to make an impact to thrive is this hustle, this,
Hmm.
grind, all these different things, right? I think what's fascinating about what you're talking about is that your kids are learning a very, very real life skill that I think will far outpace anybody who grinds. And really what that is it's relational, right? It's
Yeah.
community building. It's something that today, and I don't care what anybody says, man. Like the Surgeon General put out a report on loneliness and what the detriment is to our society. We are all the data is so overwhelming on what true happiness, the cause of true
Yeah.
happiness and relationships are a key part of that. The
Hmm.
data is overwhelming on how unhappy people are and how much they long and desire for relationship, and you can't do relationship in a hurry. So the life skills
Yeah.
that your kids are learning, right? Like the vision that came to my head is when you're truly present with somebody over a meal, right? Like a friend.
Yeah.
There's the dichotomy of when you're truly present, when that person is just listening and they're all in the way that makes you
Hmm.
feel, versus most of our friends and family potentially with this thing right in front of their face, or constantly being
Yeah.
distracted by a phone, even something as that we perceive to be as small as like a notification on the phone pops up and you look at it, right?
Hmm.
You don't even have to respond, you don't have to do anything, but you're so easily distracted from the
Totally.
conversation
Hmm.
because you don't have the skills to actually be. I tell my kids this all the time. It's terrible. I'm like, can you guys just be like human beings?
Yeah.
Like normal
Yeah.
human beings talk and they say things
Yeah.
like good morning, and they
Yeah.
express their feelings in ways that are not always just wanting to fight, right? It's just it's very fascinating to me that the life skills you're teaching your kids are very, very applicable to success and all the things we desire for our family in the
Hmm.
future, right? It's not just, oh, I just want you to grind, make
Yeah.
money, and
Yeah.
do this thing. So I commend you on that. And
Thank you.
and I'm curious, like, how have you seen your kids change? How have you seen what the impact on them
Yeah.
as you become a more intentional father?
Yeah. Yeah. I think oh man, I love the question. And I just love, like I said, I love this topic. I think it's so important. And like I said, under discussed, amongst dads, especially. Because I think that like to your point, so often because dads are trying to hustle and grind to get everything done, there's this almost refusal to admit that you're a limited human being. And so there's this feeling that you should be able to do everything. You should be able to get everything done. So you hustle, you grind, you don't want to slow down because it makes you more anxious about the things that you're not doing at that time. And because of that, you're never actually evaluating are the things that I'm giving my time to important? Like I was saying earlier, are they actually serving my family's vision, my values for my family? because you're not assessing. You should just assume, you're just assuming that I should be able to do all of this. And so then as you're trying to do more and more and more, like that anxiety doesn't go away. It actually builds because you realize no matter how much I do, no matter how much I get done, there's always going to be more to do. Like I am never going to be able to do it all. I'm never going to reach the end of the to-do list. I'm never going to reach a point where my kids don't need me on a daily basis. I'm never going to reach this point where my house is in perfect order and my yard is pristine and everything is as it should be. That time never comes. And so you grind and you grind and you grind and you realize I can't do it. And like I thought I could. And that's the thing that I want dads to realize. Like that's the thing that I want dads to realize is like you can't be all things to all people. You can't do everything. And that's to go back to your question about how I've seen it impact my kids. Like, I think that they see that. I think that they understand that like what we do and the things that we say yes to are intentional yeses. And, we do a family meeting that we've just recently started incorporating our kids on a little bit more on a weekly basis. And we, kind of look at our calendar and something I learned from a guy named Jeremy Pryor, who leads an organization called Family Teams that I love. And they talk about looking at your calendar and being able to tie it to your vision as a family, being able to say, hey, these are the things we have coming up that we're going to do. And here's why we're going to do them. Not just because it's, because we had an open night and so we needed to fill it. It's going to be, hey, we're going to go have dinner with this family because we really feel like the Lord is inviting us to reach out to them, to connect with them, to be unhurried in our relationship with them and to invest in them. And so I think for our kids, like being able to see the ways that they're able to start making those assessments, they're able to start seeing what's important to our family. And like I mentioned earlier, they can hold the line on that, especially my oldest three. When we start to drift away from that, if we lose the vision, if we're, stacked up too much with our schedule, or if things start to go a bit too fast, they can often be the ones that kind of say, hey, we've been doing a lot lately. Can we talk about this? And so it's one of those things that I'm really grateful for, that our kids are buying into that they see that, and that they're partnering with us in so many ways to help bring that vision into reality.
Yeah, dude, this is so good, man. I've definitely seen an impact to my children when I'm like in a hurry hustle mode.
Yeah,
Coming from the military, like we have this like mantra of like if you're on time, you're late,
yeah,
right? What is it to give it to be on time is to be
No,
early or something like
you
that.
see that
Yeah,
this
yeah,
just killing it. You nailed it. No, to be early is to be on time. Be on time is
that's
to be
right.
late. To be late is to be left behind. Right?
That's right. That's right.
oh,
Yeah.
there you go. I like it.
But yeah, I mean, so like I get into this like let's go mode, right? Like, hey, let's
Hmm.
hurry, let's get out the door. Like what is it? Dave Ramsey says, like I lose my religion getting to church, right?
Oh
To be
yeah,
on time.
yeah,
And it impacts my kids
yeah,
tremendously. It
100%,
impacts my kid
man.
because they get anxious, they have this
Hmm.
anxiety and they get all flustered
Yeah.
and so I
Oh
constantly have to
man.
tell myself to slow down.
Yep. I feel it. I say often like the dad that I want to be is incompatible with being hurried. Like I cannot be in a hurry and be the type of dad that I want to be.
Yeah.
Like I felt it on Saturday. I was in Atlanta for an event and was coming back, and my mother-in-law was watching our kids because my wife had a thing to go to that evening, and we were late getting back, and it was a great day. And I remember getting home, getting to my kids, and just being in a terrible mood. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why am I feeling like this? And I realized I felt anxious because I was trying to hurry home because I said I'd be home at one time. It was an hour later because of the weather, delaying us getting back. And I just felt like this tangible like pressure in my chest that was all because I was trying to hurry. And I was short with the kids. I spoke harshly. I had to, pull them in and be like, hey, I'm sorry. Like that was not the type of dad that I want to be. I was not kind to you in coming back into our home because I was trying to hurry. Like, and it's just like, to go back to our man, John Mark Comer, he says hurry is like violence to the soul. And it really is. I'm seeing it more and more, as I learned this.
Yeah, dude. So, from the guy who's listening to this, who has the W-2 job, who has, the kids sports and the school
Yeah.
activities and all the things, right? Like all
Hmm.
the things that we think are important in our lives. How do you manage it? Like how do you practically take action steps to slow down your life? I mean, you have a W-2 job, you're
Hmm.
coaching, you're doing LinkedIn posts, like you're connecting with the
Yeah.
guys, you have 6 kids, all being homeschooled. Like, how do you do this all
Yeah.
and still
Yeah.
remain, unhurried?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And yeah, it's my biggest invitation that I give to dads, whether it be ones that I'm working with or coaching or just in general like this. My one of my favorite phrases is start where you are, not where you think you should be. And it's this again, as we were saying earlier, right? Like we as dads can often feel this pressure to make it all happen at once. And if you're feeling overburdened, so if a dad is listening to this and you're feeling overburdened, you're feeling like this the pressure that there's too much going on, that there's just simply not enough time, which is like the number one complaint that I hear from dads, the number one obstacle that I hear from dads, and why it's hard to be present and intentional in fatherhood. Um, I'd say it is very likely that you are probably overcommitted. You've probably said yes to too much. I'd say that's the default for most people, and most people live kind of too close to or above their limit of what they can manage. And rather than saying, "Hey, we're just going to scrap everything and craft this life that we want, or just take every commitment off the books," my encouragement is to just start small. Like start with one thing. Is there one thing you're doing on a weekly basis, even if it's a 30-minute, 1 hour commitment, whatever it is, that maybe isn't serving your family, that you're doing out of obligation or duty or whatever that thing is, and can you start saying no to that? Or maybe it's moving forward this upcoming month. February starts later this week. Hey, for the month of February, like we're just going to say, we're going to say no to new invitations for new things. Like we're just not going to add anything else to our calendar and see how that goes. It doesn't have to be like these big, massive shifts to start with. I think it can be really small things that just start to shift that framework for you, that get you to start thinking differently about your time, that gets you to start thinking differently about what you're committing to, or even if you're like by default just saying yes to things, which again I think is the case for most people. So it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be like life altering decisions. I think it can start small. You know, book a plan one night to do family dinners, right? Thursday nights our family dinner night, non-negotiable. We're going to say no to everything else so we can do family dinner together on Thursday, and then go from there. See if you can grow it to multiple nights a week. See if you can add other meals. See if you can start being more intentional about the way that you're using your time.
Yeah, it's so good. And one of the things that we preach in the Connect Man is the intention. So I love your use of intentionality, right? Like that is
Yeah.
something that we are completely dedicated to. Uh, but in the practicality of these exercises, I think there's two powerful things also that we do. One is, like you said, you start where you are, and it's very, very powerful to make a list of the things you currently do and the things you
Hmm.
desire, right? Like,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then see the gap and see what
Mm.
reality is. And if you in the process of taking a list or taking account of your time and taking note of the things you do, there's, John Mark Comer said it. I was listening recently again to one of his podcasts, and I loved it. Basically, I won't say everything he said, but where he framed it up is, if you're too busy to do these things, if you think you're too busy to do these things, like he's like, he didn't pull any punches. He's like, then you're too busy to worship Jesus. You're too busy to be a
Mm.
Christian. And so you
Yeah.
should look for a different way, right? Like if you
Hmm.
genuinely can't do these things, and so the same could be said in your house, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe you're just not cut out to be a dad. I don't think that's the answer. I think when we
Hmm.
frame it in a way that is honest, then we can realize, okay, what are the things that are truly taking my priority, right? And I think that exercise too, you start to realize, huh, and I sure do spend a lot of time like on YouTube shorts, or I binge Netflix, or whatever it is you do. If you're honest about it, then you can start recapturing that stuff. And then you can start building it in, filling some of those gaps between who you are and who you want to become. And then,
Hmm.
and then one thing you said that really, especially as a believer, I would challenge anybody. And I think John Mark Comer had said something like this, and in a lot of the readings that we're reading the Bible in a year, and part of it is we're currently in the Gospels. But I challenge any believer to look at the example of Jesus, who we're trying to emulate, right,
Hmm.
as the perfect example, and find the example of where he was hurried, where he ran from one town to another,
Yeah.
right? And a great story is when his best friend dies or dear friend dies. And what did he do? Right? When
Hmm.
Lazarus died, he just kind of he's like, oh man. And he even mourned. I think isn't that the shortest verse in the Bible in that story?
Yeah.
Jesus wept, right?
Jesus wept.
And so he even mourned the death, knowing what he was going to do,
Hmm.
and yet he did not rush. He did not hurry. And so that example is so powerful, especially for us believers to at least consider and be like, how far am I from that?
Right.
How far am I from that?
Yes. Yeah.
And why was he intentional with his time?
Hmm.
So it's just an
Yeah.
interesting thing. So I really appreciate you having that because it kind of hit me again like, huh,
Yeah. Yeah,
where am I?
absolutely. Yeah. And I think about so often when it talks about in the life of Jesus where, he's in a town, he's performing miracles or he's, just preaching and then he just leaves, right? He feels the Lord call him to go somewhere else and he leaves. And it's not like there wasn't more to be done, right? He could have stayed and performed more miracles. He could have preached more. He could have, disciples could have baptized more. But he left, right? Like he said no to really, really good things in that town to follow the call of the Father to the place that he was supposed to go. And I think about that often when I think about how easily we get pulled into things that we deem important and we're like, well, this is too important to say no to without ever actually considering, is this for me to do right now, right? It's not that it won't ever be, it's not that it might not be yesterday, but is it for me to do today? And being like, if Jesus said no to that kind of stuff and walked away, like I think we can too.
That's good, man. So with a few minutes left, I don't want to steal all of your tips and tricks in your coaching, but if you could leave maybe a few like tools, right?
Yeah.
On your website, you're equipping dads, right?
Hmm.
How are we
Yeah.
equipping dads? What are some tools that you can give before we end the call here?
Yeah. So I mentioned the note card exercise earlier. I think that's a really good one
Yeah, that's
to
good.
kind of evaluate your margin. Like you were saying, Dave, being able to list out all of your current commitments and responsibilities, I think can be pretty eye-opening for folks, right? Like when you don't think about the small things, the fantasy football league that you're joining or the round of golf that you play every couple of weeks with some friends or different things like that they add up. And so being able to list it all out and see the things that you're committing your time to can be really eye-opening in itself. And then I think to possibly even like come before that to be a prerequisite for that, I think really aligning on I've alluded to this a couple times, but aligning on your vision for your family, for your fatherhood, I think is such a key thing for dads to be like, you can't be intentional if you're not trying to get to a specific place. And so I think being able to take a step back and really fight to understand and even write out what that vision is. And one of the exercises that I use, I don't think it's unique to me by any means. I've heard others that do this as well, but um, writing out your eulogy from the perspective of your kids, I think is such a powerful thing. Just absolutely wrecked me the first time I did it, and just revealed so much about who I want to be as a dad. So the exercise is, if you've not heard it before, essentially imagine you're 80, 85, 90 years old and you die and your kid is standing up at your funeral giving your eulogy. Like what would you want your kid to say about you and the impact that you had on their life? And I encourage dads to actually write this out. Don't just think about it, like actually write it, like you're writing a speech and see what comes up. Like see what are the words that you want your kids to use to describe you? How do you want them to describe growing up in your home? How do you want them to describe what it was like to be your son, to be your daughter, how you showed up for them? And then ask yourself like a really hard question of, if I keep doing what I'm doing today, is that the type of eulogy that my kids will give? Um, And I'd venture to guess it's probably not, for many of us, and that's okay. Like we have like the gift of time, at least for right now, and being able to, like I said, make those small incremental changes is going to add up over time. So being able to do that exercise, to kind of set that vision, to have an idea of where you want to go, and then work backwards from there, kind of reverse engineer it to say, hey, if I want my kid to say this about me, what's something I can start doing today? What's one small thing I can do today to have that type of impact on my kid? And then how can I find ways to keep doing that? And that's, a lot of the coaching or the cohorts that I've done is kind of geared towards that. It's that what I call the burn untamed framework, which is where you kind of craft that vision, you create margin in your life to prioritize that vision, and then you construct rhythms that are going to slowly but surely bring that vision into reality. But I think that's where it has to start. It all has to start with that vision of where you want to go in your fatherhood.
Yeah, dude, I love that, man. So we do something similar inside the Kinetic Man, inside our Clarity Month of writing the eulogy,
Yeah.
and we do it where you write two eulogies. The first eulogy is you write it from a perspective of like someone's writing it and they can't lie. Like they're gonna
Mm,
write it like truth, like what is happening
yeah.
right now. Like if you die tomorrow, they have to write and they can't lie about
Mm,
what your life is like. And then you do the other one where you want them to like you write it to where like you want it to be heard. Like someone
yeah.
writes it in a way that you want it to be heard, and then you compare those two. And like you said, vastly very different. But man, writing your eulogy from your kid's perspective, that's like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm just like thinking about that, and like I can like start tearing up, man,
Oh
just
yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
how my
Yeah.
kid's
It's
perspective of writing my eulogy could be.
hmm
That's
yeah.
tough, man. That's tough. I love it. Hey, where do people
Hey,
find out
one
more
point
about
of
you? Oh yeah,
clarification
go ahead.
though. So the way we actually do it is we do the ideal one first,
Yeah.
right? We do the ideal
Oh,
one
nice. Yeah.
first because then that really opens your aperture. It forces you to, and I'm thinking about doing this same exact framework, but with the prompt that
Yeah. I
you
was just
just
thinking
said,
that'd be
dude, from
great.
the dad
Combine those
perspective,
two. Yeah.
because like who do I want to be? Because that's actually easier a lot of times to write that one and have this beautiful vision and
hmm
really refine without the bias and without this, the oftentimes the just the pain of the realization of the truth of who we are, right?
Yeah.
You can dream. And then you're like you meditate on that for a bit, and then you write, where am I truly, right? Where am I
hmm
truly? And what are the gaps? That's Stu was highlighting, and we talked about earlier, when you take a time assessment, what are the gaps? Like if you can identify the gaps, it's an amazing place to be. It's even more powerful, I think, oftentimes than the vision or the acknowledgement of the reality where you're at, whether it's time, whether it's eulogies, whatever it is, because the gaps give you actions, right? The gaps give you clarity around, okay, I'm 250 pounds. I want to be 210. There's a gap of 40 pounds. Like, okay, what can I do about that 40? It's a lot more daunting to just think about 210, 210, 210. Okay, it's 10. Okay,
Yeah.
how did I lose the first 10? Here's how you lose 10. Here's how you lose 30. Here,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? So I
hmm
think we can do the same thing as dads, and it takes some of the mystery out of it. It takes some of the
Yeah.
overwhelm out of it. Like we can be like, okay, dude, like you said earlier, Tyler, but can I do one dinner a week with my family? Yes.
Mhm.
Awesome. And then celebrate it, right? Like do
Yeah.
it and celebrate it. Make it a thing, make it powerful. And you'll start to see like I'm actually it's I don't know why this conversation kind of prompted this, but I'm when I go home today, I'm going to take my boys out. It's beautiful out. I'm going to take them out and jump on the trampoline. But the part that's really sticking in my mind is I'm going to turn my phone off. And I don't know when I'll turn it
hmm
back on. And I don't care. Like I'm starving to turn my phone off right
Yeah.
now, which is a
Yeah.
really weird, weird thing that we've been focused on. But again, it's just, there are certain things you can do, right?
Yeah.
And that's the magic of it. That's the power. It's
hmm
not to sit in a eulogy and think of what a crappy dad you are. Because most
Right.
likely, by your own measure, you are a crappy dad in certain ways, right?
hmm
So then what's the most powerful thing to do? Well, do something about it.
Yeah.
Do
Yep.
something about it. Step one is
hmm
identify what you can do. And so I love that
hmm
exercise. I'll probably
Yeah.
take some time to do
I
that this
love,
week.
yeah. I love the framework that y'all are using for that too. I think it's such a good. John Tyson is a pastor up in New York. He has a quote says, "The gap is the gift," and it's this. The
Mm.
gap is the thing that kind of creates that hunger, that drive to move forward, to make a change, to start doing things differently in order to get to where you want to go. And so I love the idea of comparing the two and identifying that gap and allowing it to spur you on to take action. That's awesome.
Well, feel free to steal it and use it in your own
Yeah,
programs.
I love it.
Yeah, man. Hey, so
Yeah,
how
but
do people?
if you come like a huge coach making zillions a year, just 10%, dude.
There we
Just
go,
10%.
man.
That's all
We
you
got it. You got it.
Yeah. Hey, how do people get a hold of you, Tyler? Where do people find out
Yeah,
about your coaching
yeah.
and all your programs?
Yeah, so I do have a website, burnuntamed.com. There's not a whole lot there right now, but you can use that to get in touch with me. LinkedIn is my exclusive kind of social media right now. Post there, like I said, pretty much every weekday, and try to be responsive to messages and stuff there. So Tyler Graham on LinkedIn.
Yeah, dude, it's fantastic. So you're not doing TikTok videos or anything like that?
No, no TikTok,
No.
man. I
Okay.
don't think I don't think anybody wants to see any of that.
You should do like
Not
a
for
dad
me.
dance. Like you make up a dad dance, I think I'll go viral, right?
Oh
That's
man.
that's
For
right.
all the wrong
Well,
reasons for me.
Exactly.
dude, this was a fantastic conversation, man. It's
It's great. Well, thank you
motivating to
guys for
get
having
through.
me on.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, guys and gals. Reach out to Tyler. He's great contact on LinkedIn. Go check out his website if you're feeling called to get a little bit of one-on-one coaching from him. Check out his website, Burn Untamed. We'll put all those in the show notes. And hey, let's all go take uncommon action to be slower, unhurried fathers.
There we go. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Thank you, Tyler.
Hey, would you be interested if I told you that I have a 4-step framework to become super successful and incredibly good looking? If so, grab a pen and take some notes, because here we go. Step 1, define what success looks like to you in your life and the most important aspects that you say are a priority. Not someone else's definition, but your own definition. From that, create a vision that breaks it down into daily action steps. Step 2, take action. Turn those steps into habits, track them, and know that there'll be challenges along your journey. Step 3, surround yourself with like-minded people that will hold you accountable to what you said you wanted to do, and know that they'll also be there to lift you up when it gets hard. Step 4, live in those newly created habits to form you into the type of person that you want to become through calendar level type change. We call it getting real at TKM. We reflect, we execute, we account, and we live. And we've discovered that you can accomplish anything with that framework. And that's exactly what the Kinetic Man is all about. We take uncommon action to live with no regrets and say yes to our best life. Now, most of this gets done inside our high-level mastermind that meets every week. But we've had great feedback, and we decided to start a new program called TKM Reflections, guiding men to take uncommon action. We're starting it in March, and we're going to meet once a month to guide you through redefining success in 9 critical aspects of your life, which we call the Kinetic Life Circle. You'll be asked some really hard questions. You'll be surrounded by like-minded warriors, and you'll walk away with a new definition of success and an action plan to live a life without regret. And here's what you get. You'll get video recordings to build your foundation. You'll come away with a new identity, core values, and a purpose. You'll have monthly live and recorded 1-hour video calls with the TKM staff. You'll get a downloadable copy of the Kinetic Life Plan, which is 50 plus pages of incredible content. And you'll get a community of men that you'll know fully and will call brother. And we're adding on some bonuses that normally only the mastermind members get. You'll get access to 4 monthly level up videos from our podcast guests. You'll get access to the quarterly investor pitch day, which is incredible. And you'll get access to our annual private retreat here in Colorado that's only for members. So you might be asking, who's this for? And I'll honestly say that it's for every man that's ready to step it up and live a life without regret. It's for the man who wants to redefine success and say yes to his best life. So now is the opportunity. Jump on this. Go to thekineticman.com/sign up. Again, thekineticman.com/sign up. Go take uncommon action. We'll see you there.
Thank you for listening to the Connect Man podcast. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.thekineticman.com. thekineticman.com to see all the ways we could connect.
And on our website, you can find more information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find more information on and sign up for the next Kinetic Man retreat and the next house of our mastermind group. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your favorite podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go take uncommon action.